How's it going, you guys? So in this video I wanted to talk a little bit about our body's most powerful antioxidant and the most important factor to consider when we're thinking about immunity and boosting immunity and boosting the overall health and strength of your body's constitution as a whole. And so there's a lot of talk about this one particular endogenous antioxidant system, but I don't feel like it's given enough credit. So essentially, I'm talking about glutathione. Now, glutathione is essentially your body's master endogenous, meaning inside of itself, antioxidant. In fact, what's really interesting is a lot of these exogenous antioxidants, things like vitamin C and N-acetylcysteine, they actually work by enhancing the effects of or boosting in some way glutathione or glutathione production. For example, vitamin C. Vitamin C, it helps to recycle glutathione, and that's its main function as an antioxidant, is actually helping to recycle glutathione, to help glutathione continuously scavenge free radicals and to last longer in circulation. And so, how do you boost glutathione production? So glutathione, this is an interesting thing. Vegans love to push this idea that eggs contain, like animal proteins, specifically eggs contain the amino acids cysteine and methionine. And cysteine and methionine tend to convert to homocysteine. In fact, they are precursors to homocysteine. Homocysteine, if found in your blood, especially in excessive amounts, on serum tests, if doctors test your blood and find high levels of serum homocysteine, that is a marker for high amounts of inflammation and a potential marker for heart disease. And vegans like to say increase cysteine in the diet and methionine, because they are precursors to homocysteine, that they put you at a greater risk of heart disease and cancer by increasing blood levels of homocysteine. Now, what they don't tell you is common treatments for high levels of serum homocysteine happen to be supplementing with B vitamins like vitamin B6 and B12, and also choline. And there are a variety of other cofactors. You could easily just do a Google search and you could find a chart. You'd probably find an infographic showing the conversion of different cofactors converting into glutathione, and you'll find all the cofactors you need. Similar how I did in my video on dopamine and catecholamine production. So basically, high homocysteine in the blood can be neutralized by supplementing with B6 and choline, because cysteine and methionine converting into homocysteine. Homocysteine is actually a precursor to glutathione. The problem is, if you're eating a lot of like egg whites or even things like whey protein potentially, but that's not necessarily the case. But generally things like egg whites and other high protein foods that are stripped of the rest of the complex, you're not getting the B vitamins that are required to convert homocysteine into glutathione. So what I'm saying here is the reason why B6 and choline neutralize serum homocysteine is because they actually do this by converting homocysteine into glutathione. Because choline and B6 and a few other nutrients are required cofactors for converting homocysteine to glutathione, for glutathione production. So that's a fascinating fact, okay? That's the half-truth that vegans throw at you, but the fact is if you want to increase your glutathione production, then eat a high protein diet that is complete with the whole food structure. That means if you're eating chicken, make sure you eat chicken with the skin. Not only does eating the skin on the chicken provide you with the glycine, which actually I believe glycine also helps to boost glutathione, both directly and indirectly. But it also contains other fat-soluble nutrients and things that are inside of the skin that are required for taking the amino acids in the fat-free chicken breast, for example, and converting them into their end products, their beneficial compounds, such as glutathione. And so that's a very broad and general recommendation with a lot of caveats. But essentially, you need to be consuming cysteine, you need to be consuming methionine, and you need to be consuming adequate amounts of the cofactors required to convert these things into glutathione. Now, obviously, there's other supplements and things. In fact, they do sell over-the-counter isolated glutathione, although that's very expensive, and I don't believe that there's sufficient evidence to show it that it's even effective. Also, I don't feel like it's necessary, and I think it's potentially dangerous. There's a lot of evidence that supplemental antioxidants in an isolated form tend to cause side effects. In fact, they tend to cause the opposite effect of which they are supplementing in the first place. Like there's a lot of evidence that shows supplemental antioxidants in isolated form tend to increase your risk of cancer and all-cause mortality, various other things. But when you see, so what I've seen as the most effective is consuming a diet that's based on whole animal proteins and consuming high antioxidant-rich foods, which work well for your own body. Different people actually tend to have problems with many plant foods, even ones that are easy to digest, things like bananas and whatnot, especially if you're on a low-carb diet, which tends to have its own antioxidant effects and anti-inflammatory effects on its own. A lot of people don't know ketones, such as beta-hydroxybutyrate, actually happen to have their own antioxidant effects on their own, which is fascinating, especially considering you can consider ketones, you can consider them endogenous antioxidants because they're produced from your own body fat. So I believe that would be an endogenous. But you can convert dietary fat into ketones as well, or supplement with MCT oil. So, you know, there's various methods of boosting endogenous antioxidant production. Now, so as far as supplemental antioxidants, for me personally, I'm a strong believer in concentrated powders of whole foods. Like, for example, you can now buy blueberry extract powder, you can buy pomegranate concentrate. I mean, there's grapeseed extract. I actually believe grapeseed extract tends to be very powerful, for the very least increasing your circulation, nitric oxide, and blood flow, as well as boosting your mood and energy levels, and being a very powerful antioxidant. So anyway, other ways that you can boost your own endogenous antioxidant production, or the effects of endogenous antioxidants, would be just to avoid consuming foods that create reactive oxygen species in the first place. So you don't really need so much antioxidant activity if you simply cut down on free radical damage and reactive oxygen species, which is what triggers inflammation. It's not inflammation that's bad, it's the damage that occurs as a byproduct of metabolites and metabolism. And in particular, when we're talking about ROS, or reactive oxygen species, we're thinking of compounds such as, obviously processed sugar is probably the biggest one, but high carbohydrates in general, especially ones that are not bound to fiber or packaged with their own antioxidants. You know, these days especially fruits are so high, they've been hybridized to contain greater concentrations of fructose, you know, and they're more freely available at the very least. There are a lot of wild fruits that that have high concentrations of sugar that were available, you know, for thousands of years. It's not like humans were without fruit entirely, but we never were able to go to a supermarket and buy pounds and pounds of bananas, you know, and munch out at them all at one time. Especially, they were seasonal back in the day. The point is, though, consuming high amounts of sugar and carbohydrates in general, but especially in the form of fructose, it's not healthy. It's not natural. Fructose increases triglycerides in the blood, and these high carbohydrate foods tend to increase what's known as advanced glycation end products, which are, and this is endogenously, okay, because you can consume foods, you know, like meat or charred meat that have advanced glycation end products outside of the body, but when you consume them, a lot of evidence I've seen shows that the advanced glycation end products that you eat are actually neutralized before they ever reach the bloodstream. Whereas when you eat sugar and carbohydrates, it actually binds to proteins inside your blood and produces AGEs, or advanced glycation end products, inside of you, which again, you know, endogenous, anything created endogenously is going to be a lot more powerful than when you consume it outside the body, because the bioavailability, for one, is going to cut down the amount of whatever it is you're consuming, for one, like the digestion process and these things. And number two, you know, the body has many defense mechanisms that limit the amount of antioxidants it takes in, and all foreign invaders, pathogens, and you know, other potentially harmful or even potentially helpful compounds. Stomach acid neutralizes a lot of these things. There's a wide scope of, you know, how much is this food going to affect me. So that's why endogenous antioxidants are more powerful than exogenous. Your glutathione production should be placed at greater importance than consuming a lot of fruits and vegetables and getting your antioxidants that way. Not to say those aren't important. The same concept applies to exogenous, you know, dietary inflammatory factors like advanced glycation end products. So what I'm saying is, you char some meat, it creates advanced glycation end products and polycystic amines or whatever, hydropolyamines, and then when you consume those, you know, the amount the impact that's going to have on your body is negligible. From the evidence I've seen, but, you know, post data if you disagree, please. Inside of your body, though, high carb foods, high sugar, high processed foods, especially when they're not bound to fiber and other buffering factors and antioxidants that would balance out the load of damage load, you could say. These things increase free radical damage, okay, inside your body. That's what I'm getting to a dramatic degree. And from what I've seen, C-reactive protein goes way down when you remove most carbohydrates, especially people in ketogenic diets. Blood levels of homocysteine go way down. And your markers for most disease tend to go way down when you remove carbohydrates from the diet. It's a fascinating thing. Another thing is, most inflammatory diseases go away. People constantly report greater immunity, less sickness, their chronic autoimmune conditions go away, and there's many reasons why that might be the case. Now, you don't need to necessarily go on a ketogenic diet to do this. caloric restriction tends to cause many defense mechanisms in the body. You could think of it as hormesis, has a hormetic effect, which is pro-survival, makes the body more efficient at metabolizing glucose, and helps the body recycle different, like autophagy essentially, it helps it recycle old proteins and such. And so caloric restriction can be a good anti-inflammatory, pro-endogenous antioxidant type strategy. Although it's not necessarily promoting endogenous antioxidants, it is serving the same purpose and boosting your overall immunity in the long run. Although personally I don't recommend it, I think there's a great increase in cortisol for most people, especially if you're an athlete, and it's not necessary. You can get similar benefits from doing intermittent fasting or 1 meal a day, as long as you achieve adequate nutrition and calories for your lifestyle in that 1 meal a day or in that feeding window. Most people tend to induce caloric restriction on accident through the intermittent fasting protocols. So another thing is saunas. They increase various markers of endogenous antioxidants, and particularly they help your body release heat shock proteins and endorphins as well, which tend to have not only hormetic effects, but they make your body stronger and help your body to fight off free radicals. And I believe I've seen data that shows exercise boosts glutathione to a significant degree, although it's been a while since I've dug into that. Now, again, there's many different supplements you can take, obviously NAC, vitamin C, bilberry extract, superoxide dismutase tends to increase when you supplement with Hoshu Wu and when you supplement with gynostemma. I'll make another video on supplements you can use in the future. Right now I'm cooking food and I think it's burning, so leave your questions, comments down below. I just want to kind of discuss endogenous antioxidants and boosting your immunity through simple means. I think a ketogenic diet's the best approach, or a low carb diet in general, and then whatever carbohydrates you consume, make sure that they are easy for you to digest and tolerate and contain large amounts of fiber and antioxidants, which help to balance the effects of the high carbohydrate load. And low glycemic load foods are going to be best, obviously. Low glycemic load, not index. Index is irrelevant. It's low glycemic load that you want to look for. I'm Wolfgang von Latman, Lizana, and I'm signing off.